Welcome to the Resilient Minds podcast, stories of grit, growth, and success, where we dive deep into the journey of successful leaders who've struggled and succeeded. Before the wins, before the titles, what was the mindset behind the leader? On this show, we focus on real stories behind the success, the struggles, the resilience, and the courage it takes to keep moving forward, even when times get tough. My goal is to provide you with stories of hope and transformation, showing that no matter the challenges, there is a way forward. On this show, we'll be meeting with highly successful leaders who've battled through obstacles, emerging stronger and wiser on the other side. This show is for anyone who wants to grow, evolve, and find the light at the end of the tunnel. Everyone's a leader, so together, we'll uncover what it truly means to evolve as leaders, and ultimately, as human beings. This is Resilient Minds. I'm your host, Dr. Campbell, and I'm here with Jennifer, and she is a wonderful person and beautiful soul, and she was telling me about her financial wellness practice that she has, and when we connected, I just knew that you guys need to listen to her and see what she thought about us managing our money, but from a therapeutic point of view. So Jennifer, thank you so much. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Yeah, thanks, Jacqueline, for having me. I'm so excited to be here today. So what I do is I'm trying to help open up the conversation around how money is not really about math or about even a certain set of skills, but about how intricately it's entwined with our emotional well-being, our mental well-being, our psychology, our identity, how it affects our relationships, just that much bigger picture about what money means to us and all of what external factors that we really aren't nodding to as a society that affect our financial choices.
Yeah.
And then helping professionals, so anybody who works with people around money, helping them understand that their clients are more complex than just needing more data. That seems to be one of the main ways that we try to help our clients is like, well, let me show you why this plan will work, or let me explain to you why you don't need to be nervous in this, turbulent market upswing or downswing or whatever. And that can have a place, but there's so much more to it. And I see, pervasive patterns in people, as they're working with wealthy clients, anybody. And it's like, well, if we tackle that psychological piece, I think you're going to make a lot more progress than if you just kind of keep coming at it on that cognition side.
Well, I really appreciate what you do as, I've had years in the mental health field before I came in and started doing leadership development. But one consistent thing is people freak out when it comes to money. So what is it that made you make this switch from whatever you were doing before to it? You call it financial wellness. I love that because it's got that therapeutic spin to it that we really were lacking, and we need that piece. But what motivated that?
Yeah, so I was working the first 20 years of my adult life. I was homeschooling my kids, and then they got to the point where they really just needed me to be around, but I didn't really have to do a lot of the direct teaching. And the idea of working in financial advising was really appealing to me because I had had a positive experience with financial planner helping me feel more confident in a very turbulent time. I actually engaged my financial plan in 2009. So, right at the outset of the crash in 2008, 2007, I made some mistakes with my money. I'd done made all those emotional moves. And, it had affected our portfolio poorly and engaged a planner to really help us with that. Luckily they had a program for people who didn't meet their minimums, because that was definitely us. We didn't meet their minimums. And there was like this high component of education, involvement in the planning. Like, it wasn't just kind of handing it off to them and making them do everything like they might do in a full service arrangement. And so then out of that, they decided to start a foundation to try to reach more people, especially to try to reach young people around helping them as they were just starting out to understand all of the ways to succeed with money. And this was at the same time that I was figuring out what to do with my career. And so I asked them, what does it take to become one of these? And it seemed to be pretty much within reach. And then we worked out an arrangement where I was basically the main person to start the foundation. So I did the advising for all of those. At first, it was a broad shop people. I had 100, clients or so from all walks of life. And then we narrowed it down into the more 20 and 30-year-olds. And so I worked with, 500 plus young people, couples, individuals, at, hopefully right at that start of life. But sometimes it's people who had been working for a decade and a half, had a couple of kids. So, seeing a lot of those issues. And then what I really saw come up, especially after COVID, we went all online and then we went national instead of just kind of regionally where I live. And I was working with people from all these diverse cultural backgrounds. And I started to see these patterns come up that where their belief system was just not the same as the dominant economic cultural belief that, all of my training was based on. And I realized that, I didn't have the exact skill set to help these people that thought about money fundamentally differently than, your typical, white baby boomer couple walking into a financial planning firm is going to have a certain mindset around money. And it didn't align with that mindset. And I wanted to honor it. And I wanted to make sure that we were not in conflict around it. And I looked for some resources and couldn't find them. And so I thought, I need to be part of the solution here, because we don't know how to speak to these people. We're not trained in understanding them. And that's what began the financial wellness journey. As I started going down the rabbit hole, started doing some research. I've partnered with the University of Arizona. We're doing some research on race and financial socialization and the beliefs that come out of those different messaging, all of that different messaging. And so that's happening at the same time that I want to reach people with this understanding that there is so much more to your financial decision making than the two things that most people, the two solutions that most people think to their solution problems. There's three of them. A is more money. So that's one solution. The next is more literacy, so more education. You need to know something you don't already know. Or B, greater self-discipline. And there's definitely a place sometimes for each of those three, but there are many other factors that are involved. And it can be really helpful for us to understand, like there's some macro level stuff that's impacting your ability to be financially secure or financially successful, or you might even decide that you want to operate on a different level and that financial success might even look different to you than it does in that, like I have a bunch of assets that I can then live off of and not have to work anymore. Maybe that's not your value system. And then also the micro stuff, literally subatomic energetic things about you might have a trauma response to just sitting down and looking at your money. And if nobody's acknowledging that and they're saying, you need to start a budgeting habit, but if you have a nervous system activation when you sit down to think about making a financial plan, I can teach you all day long about habit forming, but until we tackle that trauma, that's actually going to be worse. It's going to hurt your self-confidence because you're going to fail at the budgeting. And then you're going to reinforce the mindset. Oh, I guess I'm not good at money. Oh, I guess I don't have the self-discipline to succeed in this. I guess I'll always be poor. Maybe this is just where I'm supposed to stay. The universe is against me. And when we tackle that trauma and we say, hey, you've learned some lessons in your past childhood that are coming up now.
Right.
And you're having this response. And so let's deal with the trauma. We're going to tackle it with mind, tackle it with consciousness. We're going to do some visualizations where instead of actually sitting down to do the budgeting, we're going to sit down and we're going to get totally calm and centered. And then we're just going to imagine in our minds having to look at the budget. And then before we get to a point of activation, we're going to stop and we're going to have a little bit of like visualization exposure therapy.
I love
So there are lots of ways that we can help people get to that point. We're like, oh, wait a minute. There's a lot of things at work here And if I tackle the right problem with the right solution, I'm going to make a lot more progress than if it's kind of like trying to open a pitch a bottle with a sledgehammer. If you might create more problems
Absolutely.
than you actually are solving.
So I wish that I had you when I tried to scale up my last business venture because one, I didn't have the business systems in place, and I had a lot of therapeutic techniques because I've worked with trauma survivors. So I had to apply all the therapeutic techniques that I could on myself, or else I was going to lose myself in my business. I had no choice. It was literally a life or death situation for myself. And it was able to pull me out enough, but what I got clarity on was not only did I need the business systems, but money mindset. I didn't realize how much programming I had and I had done therapy for years. Not once did I address my money trauma, which is so I
Right.
would like to relabel you if I can and just call you a money therapist. That's what I'm going to call you from now on when I talk about sending people
Well,
to.
I actually have training as a certified financial therapist. So there is designation for that, specifically to try to bridge that gap between financial professionals and therapists, helping the therapists understand the money side a little bit and helping the financial planners understand the psychological side a little bit. And it's kind of this, it's not its own profession. It's you're using the roles and the domain of your main profession for that. But yeah, that's a training, and it is. So yeah, I have therapy training.
Beautiful. Now that I know that, so in the mental health field, we call them adjunct therapists. When you partner up with somebody, because this person is an expert in, money, and this person is an expert in psychological evaluations or whatever, right? And then you work as a team to tackle the problem. Because if you're working with a human being, you have to be holistic. You cannot try to solve a human problem with one answer. It's not effective. And I believe that the mental health and the financial fields are needing to have that mindset change, but it seems like you saw it before. And so you're assisting that movement and coming in and allowing emotions to be part of the money equation, right?
Yeah.
I would also like to add that you provide safety. You were talking about earlier, like I provide this and this and this for, different clients. And I'm thinking that sounds to me like safety. When you make somebody feel safe, that's a whole other ball game. Like it opens up so many options because it creates stillness, and that's the atmosphere that you're bringing to people.
Well, you can't really make any progress cognitively on anything unless you are in that stillness. If you're in activation, then that whole part of your brain shuts down. So we really can't be making progress on relationships. We can't be making progress on like setting money goals, making sure that our values are in alignment with our goals, and then doing what's necessary to reach them. And that's something that we're not really acknowledging too. We have to go, wait a second. It doesn't make any sense to do this if we're anxious or fearful about something. Yeah. So what was your question?
Well, what I was going to ask you was how you deal with those situations, because neurologically, safety, like if our amygdala comes on, which is it's the fire alarms, it goes off, we go into fight or flight, we go all the way down to our basic instincts for survival. This is our cerebellum. Our executive functioning, which should be making our financial decisions and our problem solving decisions, is all the way at the top. And now we're all the way at the bottom. So when you're dealing with somebody who's having that much of an emotional response, how do you deal with that situation, trying to get them back?
Well, so one of the things that I say from the get-go is it's not going to be solved overnight. Say you're overspending, that you are either seeking dopamine, or there's some part of your identity that's tied up with needing to have expensive things. So you're already doing that, making those financial decisions and kind of making that financial mistake, and acknowledging that if it takes a few months to get to the point where you stop doing that, you're still better off than if we never met and you didn't get started on the process at all. Right. So I say, you might tomorrow still overspent. You might next week go on a big shopping spree that you feel guilty about. And that's okay, because in the meantime, we're going to be working on, it's literally brain science that meditation shrinks the amygdala. it is like meditation. It is like medicine. It makes that fight or flight part of the brain smaller because it's not getting activated as much. And so we might have to do a meditation practice for a month, a daily meditation practice where we work up to the ideal time would be 20 minutes, where we get to the point where we can start noticing the thoughts, not making a judgment about them. It's like working a muscle. Have you ever seen the Christian Bale Batman?
Yes.
Okay,
Great movie, by the way.
There's so many Batmans.
I know.
Like which
That one was a good one too, though.
So he plops out of bed every day and does these push-ups, right? And we see him exercising. And then there's this point in the movie when he's caught under a really heavy beam and the house is burning down. And Alfred says, well, come on, what's the point of all those push-ups if you can't even move the bloody log? He has to do a board push-up to get this log off so he can extricate himself. If he hadn't practiced his push-ups for months beforehand, he wouldn't have been able to just be like, okay, today I'm going to do this really amazing push-up.
Right.
We have to nurture that part of our brain, and then we'll be able to access it when we get into that situation of like, okay, maybe now we can come out, we've practice for a while, we can come out of our thinking, we can like say to ourselves, well, what we've already examined the beliefs. Oh, here's a belief coming in that we've talked about whether or not I really want this belief system to guide my financial decisions. And I'm noticing that this is happening. And that was something that we practiced for a while. And so I'm not expecting people to be like, okay, I'm going to tell you why this is bad and how you can change it. And then tomorrow you'll be fixed. No, it's really, especially because our belief systems, Jacqueline, they stood in place when we were like 7 to 10 years old. We are literally making our decisions, our financial decisions, is a 10-year-old.
Right.
A 10-year-old is having all of our financial decisions. Think of it as like this boardroom of all these little kids with their feet swinging under the table and their heads just sitting right here. I need this too. And, whatever it is. And they're the ones coming up because they're not getting explored. Those belief systems aren't being explored. They're not being brought to light.
Yeah.
And that's our financial belief system is in place before we've hardly had any experience with money. And it's coming through the messaging that we got in our family of origin growing up. Process of bringing it to consciousness, of taking stuff that is automatic and turning it into where we're going to actually analyze it and figure out if this is what we really want to do, if down the road our future self is going to be pleased with this decision or if we're going to regret it. That's just that it takes some practice. And so we are often talking about the process of progress is ups and downs. And that it's ups and downs. The process of progress is ups and downs. It's not a straight line. It very much goes in a wave pattern. And the way that we want to measure progress is, maybe there's greater distance between the times that we made this poor financial decision. Maybe we go on a shopping spree right now, every paycheck. We just go right to a store and we spend all of our money on stuff and we cram ourselves full of dopamine and then we have this big crash afterwards and feel terrible. And maybe if we can get that to be, well, now we only do it every month or every couple of months. Or we do it, but instead of spending all of our money, we're spending a portion of our money. And then we'll get to the point where we get further and further apart in those relapses. Relapse is part of progress. Or they're lesser, the ups and downs aren't quite so dramatic.
So you're talking about
we measure progress that way. Yeah.
Talking about measuring their progress. So not only
Absolutely.
being mindful in the moment, like regularly practicing it, so you can muscle memory, right? So when you solidify a habit, when I would say the shit hits the fan, you immediately know how to ground. Your body's been trained how to listen to you in that state. It does what you're asking it to. Then you gain conscious awareness of what you're doing when you need to make a decision. Then you measure from that point. It's not just a win. Yes, absolutely. Pom-poms in the air, you're cheering, but then you're looking back and you're self-reflecting, okay, well, how long Was it from the last like mistake or the relapse or whatever it was that you did before to now?
Write down dates and measure the intensity of the drive or the urge. Just yesterday for lunch, you know what I had, Jacqueline? I had 2 hard-boiled eggs and 6 Lindor truffles.
Yeah.
I would say maybe 2 years ago, I was eating chocolate with every meal. I was eating it. For breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I would have a little chocolate or something after every meal. And then I got to the point where I was only having it after dinner. And then I got to the point where I was only having it on weekends. I was like, okay, on Fridays and Saturdays is, date night and stuff like that. Maybe we'll have some dessert. And now I'm at the point where I hardly ever need it. I'm call that a win.
Absolutely. And then by that time, when you've effectively resolved the problem, then every once in a while, who cares? Do it. Because then you can reward yourself, and it's not going to be impulsive. It's not going to be compulsive. It's going to be controlled. You can measure it. You can keep an eye on it. And then it's you doing it, not a trauma response. Right? So really quick before we end, and I wish that we had more time. I feel like you and I could just talk forever, and everybody wants to hear about the how to better the money situation, right? So we might even have you on the show again. But I want to know really quick, in the amount of clients that you've seen, if we could do like a 0 to 100%, how much actually have trauma, physical, sexual, or violent trauma in their life that you know about that's affecting their money decisions?
Especially if we're going to call intergenerational trauma part of the picture. So they have their own experience, but then I would say every person that comes from a community of color has that intergenerational trauma, that it's somebody else's issues that they're still carrying energetically in their DNA. Being told by society that they were not human, that's still affecting them. All of the lack of trust in financial decisions, how many times that happened historically. So that's all going to come out. And I see that in every case. And then on people with, let's just say the most, again, like I look at the macro level, but the most favored economic position would be white heterosexual male with Protestant ancestry. More like 20-30% probably actually have like a trauma story that they need to share and process. And I would say overall with everybody that I've worked with, it's over 50. Right. Yeah, it's definitely over half. Yeah.
Well, and the reason why I asked you that is because my goal too with this podcast and everything else that I'm doing is to bring awareness to our mindfulness on our traumas. But traumas are not just physical, sexual, or violent, but that's what people think they are. So we have our first number, which is 50, right? But there's all those other factors that most people wouldn't even consider when making a decision that you just threw out there: generational heritage, your race, and then when you're talking about genders too, that adds a whole other layer with men and women, right? But then I would like to add into that category of trauma, attachment wounds.
Yeah.
If you feel insecure, you don't feel safe even in your own skin. So that probably bumps that 50% to more. And then we're talking about emotional or psychological trauma that even then, after you add physical, sexual, violent traumas, then attachment wounds, but you don't consider the emotional wounds.
Yeah.
That we just don't consider that they're traumas. They are traumas to the nervous system, even if you don't consider them an actual trauma, right? Mm-hmm. So thinking about all that, actual traumas, which we in the mental health field, we call them big T's, versus the small traumas, which we would, put an umbrella over the whole attachment issues and then emotional wounds. What percentage would you think?
I think we're at 100, especially when it comes to money. Oh yeah, it was wonderful.
Thank you so much for joining. Your time and your focus are your most valuable currencies, so thank you for giving that to us today. Our guest contact information will be in the description below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. But please, if you know someone who's struggling, stop right now and send this video to them. The struggle behind growth and success is real, and they need the support to make it, because the strongest minds are the ones that healed. So don't forget, lead louder, feel deeper, and stay resilient. Until next time, this is your host, Dr. Campbell, on the Resilient Minds podcast.